Have you ever read or heard the story of Job? Here we see a man who went through turmoil, physical and emotional pain, loss of livestock, servants, children, a wife who tried to get him to turn his back on God, and friends who told him that it was his fault that this was happening to him. Job says this of God: "Even if I summoned him and he responded, I do not believe he would give me a hearing. He would crush me with a storm and multiply my wounds for no reason. He would not let me catch my breath, but would overwhelm me with misery." Job 9 verses 16 to 18. This is just a glimpse of Job's pain. In verse 24, Job asks the question, or rather makes a statement. When a land falls into the hands of the wicked, he blindfolds its judges. If it is not he, then who is it? When I read this, it made me think. Job says, if not he, then who is it? And in the New King James Version, it says, if it is not he, who else could it be? His words are true that nothing happens unless God allows it. But what got me thinking was how often we misplace our anger in the Lord. Yes, God allowed these things to happen to Job, but who actually caused it? Was it not the one going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it? Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Job 1 verses 6 to 7. So who truly caused Job's pain? Was it not the one who prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour? Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. 1 Peter 5 verse 8. Don't be so quick to blame God for your circumstances. Yes, God allowed them, but the devil is the one coming after you for your destruction. I say this so you don't accidentally misplace your anger. I say this so you pull back the curtain and see who is actually the one wanting to harm you. And I guarantee you it's not God. If you recall, the devil is the one who wanted Job tested. If you recall, the devil is the one who sought Job's destruction. And if God had not told Satan not to touch his life, I wonder if Satan would have tried to kill Job. Job 1 verses 9 to 12 says this. So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. So yes, God is allowing the trials to happen. But remember that God does everything with purpose, and his plans are good. God wants to turn your pain to good. The devil wants to use it for your destruction. We also see this in Genesis 50 verse 20. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. These words were spoken by Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers, then later falsely accused and thrown into prison. He was taken away from his home, his father, and all that he knew. And after many years, God turned something so tragic into the saving of many lives. God used Joseph's pain for good. Even though the brothers wanted to harm Joseph, and even the enemy meant it for evil, God meant it for good. God used Joseph's pain for good. Job 2 verse 10 says, "Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity?" And again in Job 13 verse 15 it says, "Though he slay me, yet I will trust him." Therefore let us not misplace our anger, and remember that what the enemy means to destroy you, God wants to turn for your good. Every time something bad happens to you, remember that God only allows it because he wants to use it for your good. If you can remember that God's hand is in all that you go through, you will see that even though things look really bad, it's always God that's in control. And it's always God that holds your trials and your circumstances in his possession, never the enemy. God is allowing whatever you are going through because he wants to use it, and he has a purpose for it, a good purpose. Just as Joseph had to go through turmoil, betrayal, and false accusations before seeing that purpose, you too may not see that purpose yet, but in time you will, whether in this life or the next. If you are someone that feels angry at God for allowing something to happen to you, remember that God always seeks your good. You have to remember that we live in a fallen world and bad things will happen to us. But regardless of what happens, you can hold on to the promise that God really does work all things together for good. And when you finally do get to see the amazing purpose that God had for your pain, you will understand and wish you had trusted Him more. So don't misplace your anger at God. No matter how bad your situation may seem, trust that God will work all things together for your good and for His glory. Thank you so much for listening, and remember this truth. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Romans 8, verse 28. Don't forget that God has a good plan and a good purpose for your life, one that gives you hope and a future. And even though your pain runs deep, remember that God's love runs much deeper. And when the time is past, God will restore all that you lost and then some. He is faithful, and I know He will do it.